going on, everybody? Welcome into Raw Dog Sports. I am Mike. That is Evo. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. Man, we have got a banger episode today because we've got the big boys to talk about. We got Dline. We got Oline. We got Puka fucking biting people, apparently, as the show is starting, saying some crazy shit. And my man, Evo, looking stunning as ever. How you doing, brother? Welcome in.
Doing good, man. Happy to be back. Happy to be back in Arizona in the normal studio here, ready to get into some prospects. We are less than a month away from the draft, so super excited for that. Sounded like we're both going to be out there, man. Both going to be getting my first draft, your first draft as well, right?
Yes.
Going to be there in person, so that'll be pretty sweet, a cool experience. Excited to be here, man. Excited to go over this O-line and D-line prospect, kind of part of our lineage, the show's lineage, previously known as the Lineman Lounge, now Raw Dog Sports. So excited to do this.
Hell yeah, man. I love talking to the big boys. They don't get enough shine. They never get enough credit. Honestly, the media veil, I felt was like pretty disrespectful for the offensive line. It was not right. The fucking TV crews were all packed up. You were able to get right up front anywhere you wanted to be at the lineman's media event. It's bullshit. That's the most important unit on the team. So, and listen, I used to coach offensive line, when Graydon was coming up. So I have a very, very soft place in my heart for those guys. I also was a running back in college. And all of my buddies were linemen because, well, that's the way it should be. Those guys protected my little ass. So thanks to those guys.
Hey, look, it's something that we bring up all the time. Offensive line, defensive line, the lines and the trenches are the foundation that you build the house on, right? If you want a solid team, yeah, you need a quarterback. You want some flashy wide receiver who's out biting people and things like that. You want those pieces. But none of it works if you don't have a good foundation to build that house on. And that's the trenches, man. And it might not get the shine because a lot of the times the trenches, that line, that foundation, they are down in the ground doing that heavy lifting. You put all the nice trinkets on the outside of the house and stuff to get that resale value. But again, that house wouldn't be there without that line. That's what the trenches are there for. That's why we're excited to talk about these guys because they are extremely important. They make the rest of that offense and defense work effectively.
That's absolutely right, man. So do you want to get right on into offensive and defensive line, or should we cover the few things that have happened in the NFL since the last time that we were here?
Let's go over the couple things in the NFL. Some massive signings. We got Joe Flacco coming back to the Bengals.
Hell yeah.
We got Carson Wentz coming back to the Vikings. We got all these fun signings happening. Obviously, free agency is not over, but the big signings and stuff kind of are. Now you're getting your more bargain signings, your guys who are coming in as depth pieces, things like that. So nothing too huge, insane, or crazy. I mean, you get your Andy Daltons being traded and stuff like that. But just some, other things happening around the NFL that are kind of starting to shape out the rest of the season. We get more word on Maxx Crosby now, that the reason why the Ravens failed him was because they believed that knee issue to be degenerative, which I get when you're making a big investment, if that truly is the case, that it's a degenerative issue. That being said, those issues could maybe start to show up a little bit later in life, maybe when the guy's already out of football. So is it really a concern? I'm no medical doctor, so I don't know for sure. But there's a lot of other medical doctors out there who get paid a lot of money by teams. And a lot of teams were in on this guy.
Yeah.
And it's not like the Raiders are like, we need to get rid of him before this knee completely explodes. So it still seems a little fishy to me. But hey, that's the story that the Ravens are going to stick to.
It's a lie. I understand why they're continuing to lie, because once you start to lie, you have to keep going with the lie. Otherwise, everybody knows that you're a liar. However, I'm pretty sure everybody already knows that they're fucking liars. So shit in one hand, it sounds like shit in another at this point. And I'm here for it because the Ravens are a division opponent. I'm glad that they don't have Maxx Crosby on their team.
Yeah, I get that from your perspective. They do have Trey Hendrickson. We'll see how he's able to bounce back and be a factor there. Obviously, he won't be helping that Bengals team, who is already bereft of defense. We'll see how much they're able to do this offseason, the rest of this offseason, particularly in the draft, trying to fix their issues. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you've been doing a little series where you've been drafting for teams, and I think you might have recently done the Bengals.
I did recently do the Bengals, yes. Now, I felt like I did a pretty good job. I can go ahead and pull that thing up here somewhere. The Bengals draft. Listen, I felt like I did them really good. I went with Vega Ioane, and even PFF killed me on the grade. They gave me a C because I took him at 10, but I'm not doing any fucking trades because this would get wild with me picking for every single team on my own. I would be picking the same fucking dudes in every goddamn draft.
How the fuck did the Browns end up with 35 picks?
Exactly.
And they're picks 1 through 35.
Yeah. So I reached, but we'll talk about him here in a minute. I think Vega Ioane is probably the best offensive lineman in this draft. Then I went Zion Young, Domonique Orange, Bud Clark, Jaden Kennedy. I got an F grade on that one in the 6th round. It took him in at 189 and I got an F. I was like, God damn, what the fuck am I missing?
Look, I think especially in that range, he's a pretty solid defensive back prospect. So,
and then I went with a guy who I do not know at all. I need to go back and check this dude out. Red Murdoch.
You know, he's been rising a little bit from very small school linebacker. I think it's more of name and things like that. I don't know him that well. I've seen him popping up more in some of the mock draft databases and things like that. Maybe that's on me. Need to do more research, but he's a guy out there, small schooler.
Name.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look. Go ahead. Go the rest of your little.
So I finished out Andre Fuller and then Logan Fano. I got murdered. I got bottom 26% of the Bengals drafts. The team, or what they told me to do, what PFF said I should have done instead of drafting Vega, was to draft Carnell Tate because he was available right here. And I immediately threw out every fucking grade that PFF gave me because why would I take Carnell Tate if I'm the Bengals? You have the best wide receiver core in the NFL, and it's not really that fucking close right now. So you're going to, come on, what the fuck? So the fact I got an F, I was like, okay, fine, murder me, whatever. But I automatically threw out what they thought.
What I've found with PFF is that it rates so heavily biased towards what they list as the team needs. However, those team needs, and look, I get it. PFF, they're covering 32 teams, but it is kind of like their job to know exact team needs. It does not paint the correct picture, and it really doesn't seem to look beyond a year, like their current year, in a lot of different circumstances. I mean, you get some teams like the Rams who could use a quarterback. That's looking beyond this year. But in your case, the Bengals, do they absolutely need interior offensive line help this year? Not necessarily, though Ioane is fantastic. Like you said, possibly the best lineman in this draft, but he's extremely good on his own. Do they need him this year with an offensive line of Orlando Brown, Dylan Fairchild, Ted Karras at center, Dalton Reisner at right guard, and Amarius Mims at right tackle? Do they absolutely need him? No. However,
that line was awful last year. We can say their names, but they were terrible last year.
They weren't as bad as they've been in years past. And I believe that
hairs here there for they were the worst unit, and now they were what, 25th?
They're probably solidly in the 20s somewhere. But the point being is that Ioane isn't we're picking him for this year. Absolutely, could he play this year and probably be an upgrade? Yes. But Dalton Risner has been a bit of a journeyman, keeps signing on 1-year deals. Yes, he re-signed a little bit longer this time, but he's not a young dude. He is an average tackle, an average guard. Ioane has huge upside to be one of the best in the league. That's an investment in your offense, which is the pride gem of your team with a Joe Burrow there and that wide receiving core. So it makes sense to go after him if you view him that highly. Now, if you want to talk a positional value, sure, guards get dropped, but I'm pushing back on that. You look at how some of these interior offensive linemen are getting paid now. You look at how some of the running backs are getting paid now. The positional value is still there. That, like, the way that these guys are getting paid, it kind of makes sense to make huge investments in some of these positions for the long term, because at a minimum, you're getting 5 years from this guy. If you're giving him the 5th year option, it makes a lot more sense to consider these guys. I think that the positional value thing has to start to go out the window a little bit when the NFL is showing you and telling you with their checkbooks what's important. And so going after a guy like Ioane that high doesn't bother me. Going after him with a team like the Bengals doesn't bother me, because he could be a huge foundational piece for that offense going forward. The biggest argument to me would be not Carnell Tate, because I agree with you. Unless you have some sort of plans to move off of a wide receiver.
Exactly. You're not taking him unless somebody is not being there anymore. You just cannot feed all 3-4 of those guys the ball. It's not fucking possible.
And would it be cool to have them out all in the field? Yes, but financially, it's going to become a problem before it should be. Like, you're going to probably have to move one of your top 2 wide receivers for Tate to step into that role. And that's something they should be worrying about in a year or two, not right now. The bigger question to me would be defense. And was there a better defensive player available at that spot? Because that's been the huge weak point on this team. We can debate how bad their offensive line was. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't good, but it wasn't the weakest point of their tein. It was that entire defense. And so
I did address mostly defense. I think the rest of the way, I'd have to go back and watch. I don't remember at this point who the fuck it was.
But this isn't the Cincinnati Bengals show here. Point being, y'all should go out, check out Mike doing all of these mock drafts, a mock draft a day leading up to the draft. They've been pretty excellent. So take a little bit of time after the show, save it, watch it later, check it out, because it's a fun exercise to do.
I appreciate that, brother. It has been a lot of fun. And I still have not done mine today. So actually, when we're done here, I'm going to fucking sit down and roll back another 20-minute mock, 7-round mock. So, but with that, should we start talking about the guys that I could be drafting in this mock draft I got to do later?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of prefaced it. We're going to be going over Oline and Dline. Now, there is some variability question, specifically when it comes to the defensive line. Who fits in as a 3-4 lineman or a 4-3 lineman? For the most part, these guys are going to be a lot of your interior defenders or guys that are heavier who are going to be more like 5 techs on a 3-4 type of defensive line. We're talking mostly that interior defensive line, the big bellies, the guys who are in there pushing the pile. So we're going to start off on that defensive side of the ball with the D line. We'll go ahead and pull this up for the ladies and gentlemen, the PFF big board. We're just going to kind of roll down this line and talk about some of the guys who are important, top tier guys, and guys who have stood out to us or who we particularly enjoy. So Kayden McDonald's the first one on this list. I'm interested to get your thoughts on the big guy, the nose tackle out of the Ohio State University.
Yeah. So he's a pleasure to watch. I can tell you that. He's stocky little. Well, I guess he's not little. He's 326 pounds, and he plays the run really well. kind of anchored that Ohio State run defense in the middle and allowed for those linebackers to fly all around and make plays. Let's see where else I get. He doesn't necessarily generate much pass rush, but he can give you a little bit of interior push. He is excellent, though, at reading, run, stack, shed, find it, and actually make a tackle. He had like 34, I think it was. Yeah. 34 tackles from the interior. That's pretty damn good numbers from a D tackle. I will take that all day. Do you wish there was a little bit more pass rush there? Sure. But there's not a ton of guys in this class that have that don't come with other concerns, in my opinion. I think he's a really solid player. He plugs in right away, but he's probably only a 2-down guy.
Yeah, when it comes to Kayden McDonald, which is interesting to me, he's the 28th ranked player for PFF, their highest ranked interior defender as of right now. But a lot of that has to do with the question marks around the next two guys that we're probably going to be talking about, Caleb Banks and Peter Woods. Exactly. Because those guys are the ones that you typically are going to be seeing going into the first round and higher than a Kayden McDonald. Kayden McDonald is your more traditional nose tackle type of defensive lineman. He's got an extremely high floor. He's very good at what he does. But I absolutely agree. Probably a 2-down guy because you're not getting a whole lot of pass rush pressure there. He's going to be grabbing up 2 offensive linemen and allowing the guys around him to work. But you're
6'2", 326. I mean, that man is broad as fuck.
For sure. I saw something online that we need to start using the term for both the D lineman and the O lineman that these guys are built like Blastoise, and I like it.
Hell
the
yeah!
Pokemon reference for our generation. That's the thing is that it's tough for me because while nose tackles absolutely are important to that defensive line, typically you can find those bigger bodies who are going to be space eaters second round and a little bit later in the draft because they are limited to how often they are on the field, both just physical conditioning wise, but because the pass rush aspect is kind of taken away, where you see some of the other guys, again, that we're going to be talking about here shortly, as more of your true guys that would be going in the first round because they aren't bad run defenders by any means. They're good, but they also have that pass rush capability and maybe that higher upside. So I like Kayden McDonald. I don't like him in the first round. I think that's started to work its way a little bit more into some of these drafts where you're seeing him fall into the second round a little bit. And I feel like that's a good sweet spot for him. If we're talking about positions and their importance, we were just talking about running backs, safeties, interior offensive linemen. That's where I kind of fit a little bit more with the nose tackle, just because an interior offensive lineman is going to be out there every single offensive play. There's versatility and usage for that constantly. You are limiting yourself a little bit when you go to a guy like a Kayden McDonald, who is more of that nose tackle. And that's not to say he can't be out there on pass rush downs, but you're probably going to be seeing him less and put more of your pass rush experts out there.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you get in early, he clogs up the middle, and then, yeah, it's okay. The guy that is probably the best pass rusher we're about to talk about, but has major concerns as it relates to his health.
Yeah. Caleb Banks looked pretty damn good through this pre-draft process and then kind of hit some hiccups, specifically there at the combine towards the end, because if we look at the games played here last year, only 3 games in there due to a foot injury, a broken foot, I believe, which was surgically repaired, healed, and it sounds like we have some more foot issues there towards the tail end of the combine. Big guys, all that weight's on your feet. It's a little bit scary when you see recurring issues at the foot. Now, if we were to take that and set that aside and not pay attention to that, yeah, his PFF grade here isn't great for 2025, but it was in such a limited quantity. The guy looks like an athletic freak for a defensive lineman, a defensive tackle. If we aren't having to be concerned with the injury stuff, he's probably a top 15 pick type of player.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, man. So what I got here, very long for a D tackle, 6'6" with 35-inch arms is fucking wild. And it absolutely should translate at the NFL level where that length can be used to take advantage of those fucking interior offensive linemen who typically have the shorter arms. Only problem is he's huge and has foot problems, and he just re-broke it at the combine. When he is on the field, he is a problem, but the question is starting to become, can Caleb Banks stay healthy and make himself worthy of that lofty draft potential? Because if you want to take this kid in the first round, because, I mean, he's that kind of a talent. He's a first-round talent. That's probably at the latter half of the first round, but he's a first-round talent. But with the injury and the continued foot injury, as you brought up, you just never know. I mean, big guys in the NBA never recover. And, you know, the NFL is not going to be any easier on your body and your feet. So it is a massive concern. But I agree with, like, this is the dude, I think. Like, if you want a guy who can rush from the interior, this is the guy. This is the prototypical guy that you want. It just, you have to have concerns. And if you're going to have those major concerns, can you draft him in the first round?
It's all going to come down to medicals and what those individual teams decide on a guy. My fear is that this, if you look at his past, wasn't an injury concern up until this last year. And you're talking about a guy who knows he's coming out in the draft. He's pushing himself hard to get back on the field as soon as possible, to be able to play there in the bowl games, to be able to perform at the combine. Did he rush a little bit? And is that why there's that foot issue?
Absolutely. And here's the thing. If that is the case, while that is not smart for him long-term, you have to kind of respect the fact that he's like, I want to get back out there with my guys and fucking play. That is something that I think NFL teams would love. But at the same time, you have to be smart with your body.
Yeah. And that's it. It might make it where he goes into a situation and you do want to limit him. Like if you're able to get him back fully healthy, then you're possibly looking at a gem, a diamond that you're able to get later in the first round or even possibly into the second round. But you just have to put in a little bit of extra time. I look at a guy like a Jeffrey Simmons, who is taken extremely high, knowing after an ACL tear that he wasn't going to be able to play that first year. He's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL right now because the Titans were willing to take a chance on him, let him rehab for a whole year, and then let him become what he is now, which is a fantastic player in the NFL. And I feel like if teams believe that medically he's going to get healthy, that this isn't going to be a recurring degenerative type of issue on his foot, you could really find a fantastic player here in Caleb Banks. But that takes us to our next guy, Peter Woods out of Clemson. Another really interesting prospect here. Big dude again, played all over the field. Some interesting snap count stuff. Yeah. If you look here in 2024, Clemson had him playing at an edge rush type position, a stand-up edge rusher for 122 snaps. This is a guy that kind of plays all over the field, including a bunch on special teams, not just field goal block, but like punt return and stuff like that. He's very versatile, but I think when he gets to the NFL, you probably need to focus on what is his best position and really lock him in there. But I'm interested to get your thoughts here on Peter Woods.
Really athletic D tackle with shorter arms and a lighter frame. Profiles as a 3 tech, but he needs to improve his pass rushing. Played the run well this year at Clemson. And he had 2 incredible years leading into this season where he didn't play as well. I think he can stand to put on some weight and get a little more push in the interior with power and size comparisons with those shorter arms. We saw high-level production, then drops. Like, there are things to love, and then there are things that you hate. It's just such a mixed bag after this year that I wonder, I have concerns about how much is he going to how much is he going to work at the NFL level? Because it felt like at times that he just kind of stopped playing. Maybe it was me just being overly critical, but I mean, this is a guy that I thought had a great motor coming into this year, and this year really fell flat. So I don't love that. It makes me very sad that he's not some like supremely touted pass rushing guru, because he could be that guy. You can still win with shorter arms. He could be one of those guys that hits over that 5 sack mark. He leaves me wanting. That's how I feel about Peter Woods.
So for one of the things you're not supposed to do is scout the helmet too much, but he reminds me of a guy in Christian Wilkins, and I think he could be the best prospect at interior defensive line to come out of Clemson since him, minus the weird forehead kisses. But Peter Woods, for me, I can't speak to the motivation or anything like that. It's not that I didn't see it on the film. I just wasn't really looking for it. What I felt with him was that he was a guy that over the years there at Clemson, they used him in so many different ways and so many different spots that he does. I don't want to call it a tweener body, but I agree he needs to put on weight for that interior defensive lineman role that he's playing. But because they used him at such odd spots, including, like I said, a stand-up edge in the past, right, he hasn't fulfilled his body role to what his best positional fit is in the NFL as a D tackle. You get him into an NFL weight room, you get him with an NFL strength conditioning coach and a nutritionist that is going to start to build his body correctly for that interior defensive line. I think you're going to start to see the dividends, because when he did play on that outside pass rush, he was pretty good. He wasn't great by any means. He wouldn't have, if that had been the position that he stuck to, he's not a first round pick at that or anything. But you're seeing pass rush moves and pass rush capability for a guy that's going to probably be playing defensive tackle in the NFL. And if he's able to then leverage size into those moves, I think you could see a guy who is pretty good in the run, but actually has some pretty good upside as an interior pass rusher. So I like him a lot, but for the same thing is that's a lot of projection. So yeah, it makes it a little bit scarier. A lot of these first round picks in this draft, which in general, yes, there's guys I love in this draft, and this is a weaker top end of a draft in general, not just for this position. So you have to look at some of the projection in these guys to feel a little bit more comfortable taking them in a first round. And I think that he is a fringe first round guy. So it depends on whether or not you feel confident in that projection. And that's really coming down to your defensive coordinators and defensive line coaches. Do they see the potential in this guy in order to squeeze out what they can from him?
Well, listen, I was a little critical of him, but you do bring up a good point. I will concede that, the fact that he was so positionally moved and hasn't necessarily had a lot of time at one spot, because he's not going to play anywhere near the fucking outside in the NFL. He's not that type of athlete. He's a good athlete, but he's not that type of athlete. So I think there's some credence to that. I can concede that a little bit.
All right, this next guy on here, Christen Miller is I feel like the forgotten D tackle out of these top D tackles here. He just doesn't get talked about, but I feel like he should, because I talked about Kayden McDonald having a high floor. This guy has an extremely high floor as well, except for I feel like his ceiling is a little bit higher than a Kayden McDonald. Another guy that profiles into that nose tech range. We're talking 6'4", 310 here, but we saw he's got a little bit more weight to him, 320, 325-ish right now. Pretty solid, just solid, super consistent there at that Georgia interior defensive line. And he's been good pretty much through his entire college career. And he still has a little bit of pass rush capability. What are your thoughts on Christen Miller here?
I feel like he's the forgotten guy because he's very much the exact same as Kayden McDonald. Like, I don't want to call him Kayden McDonald light, because he's not a small human being. No. He didn't come from, I don't think maybe as big of a program. He's a good player. Well, no, he went to fucking Georgia. Never mind. I'm just being Ohio State biased there. That's what just came out of my mouth right there. I would just put Ohio State at the very top. And I was like, fuck everybody else. You see, I don't know that he's going. You see, he played a lot of B gap. I don't think he profiles as a 3 tech because there's not pass rush there to be like. He would need to be a 1 tech in the NFL, which doesn't feel like it's a different move for him. I think he's a good player, but I don't know that there's a reason that anybody is like, let's go get this guy. I'm excited. I'm kind of one of those people that has him in that forgotten D tackle range.
Because I feel like he's a forgotten D tackle, and don't get me wrong, I feel like the guys who you feel like you can pick and probably start really early, he's close to the end of that range. But he's a guy that you're going to get in the second round.
But it's still only 2 downs.
Right. And that's why I kind of was, I don't want to say critical of Kayden McDonald, but like,
right.
I don't see Kayden McDonald as a first round guy because of the position that he should be playing in the NFL. And I feel like the same thing with Christen Miller, except for he's going right around the range where he should be, which is in that second round type of range. He's more that top end nose tackle type situation in this class. Whereas another guy that we're going to talk about in a little bit, Domonique Orange, another guy who's a nose tackle. He's not as good as these other guys that we just talked about in the nose tackle range, but you're getting him in the correct spot, rounds 3, maybe round 4, because you're getting a guy that's a 2 down type of player. And you're not having some sort of huge drop off. I'll wait on my Domonique Orange critique here.
I feel like, because we can get started on that here in a second, because I feel like if you're going to spend the draft capital on a 2 down guy, why not go with a Domonique Orange instead of a Christen Miller?
I think
it feels there's not a huge difference there in my mind.
There's not. I would, if I had to choose between Kayden McDonald, Christen Miller, and Domonique Orange, of which one of those 3 guys I would have on the field for pass rush downs, it would be Christen Miller. I think that he's got the most pass rush upside of those guys. Not that it's a lot of upside, but he's a guy that I can feel a lot more comfortable being out there for 3 downs versus just 2 downs. But I do want to talk about a couple of these other guys here before we get to my boy Domonique Orange. Lee Hunter.
Yeah.
Love this dude. He really showed out in that pre-draft process.
This is a guy.
Fucking big boy.
This is the guy here's the guy that is a big motherfucker that I actually feel like could give you a little bit of extra pass rush chops through the middle. Like this is why we're not talking about Miller, because you get guys like Lee Hunter who pop off the tape, especially, and then you see him. I saw him at Senior Bowl. I was like, this dude's fucking awesome. So you get those types of guys, and you get your Millers that kind of fall by the wayside.
Yeah, that's the thing, is the tape and watching Lee Hunter in person pops a lot more than a Christen Miller. Like I said, Christen Miller is kind of, you set it, forget it. He's good. You probably are getting that pretty high floor out of him, but it's not exciting. Whereas Lee Hunter excites me because there is some true pass rush capability, some knifing capability there from this guy. He's a dude that I'm excited to possibly get a chance at with my squad around that second round range, because I feel like it's a fantastic value for a guy who can be big enough to eat up that space in the middle, be a good run defender, but you actually might be able to kind of scrape away something and find a guy that's got that true 3 down versatility to be out there as a pass rusher in the middle.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. El Presidente from not Barstool from the OTC just hit me up. We will be doing a big group mock. So Evo brought up my mock drafts earlier. Thank you for bringing those up, by the way. You can go check those out. We're rolling through. I got one to do tonight after this is over. But every year we do a large group mock draft. That will still be happening. We'll reach out to the people as that gets a little bit closer. I mean, we're going to have a lot of things happening with the draft going on, but that I fully intend on us having a large group mock draft, because I feel like that is something that we have done a really good job at since the inception of our show. Even back at the Lineman Lounge.
For sure. I do have a question here with Lee Hunter. Do you think that he has the capability to possibly be a first-round pick towards the end of that first round?
I think that it's possible because of the things that he showed at Senior Bowl, that he does have some of the pass rush chops. He's got more than a Kayden McDonald does, right? Like, and he's also going to be a big body that eats up space, can take up 2 blockers, stop the fucking run. Like, Lee Hunter should be creeping up into that range. Some teams will be like, man, he's super unathletic though. 21.5 inches. Like let me read you my write-up. So a nose tackle with a little bit of pass rush to him. Watched him at Senior Bowl. He was one of the best players there, won in individuals, made plays in team, and was generally a lightning rod for excitement. His combine scores didn't do him a ton of favors, and 21.5 inches was a mark that everybody at the combine felt like they could beat, including my fat ass. But Lee has long arms and doesn't need to jump for his position. He can drive a center right into the lap of a quarterback, and I think there's room to improve his pass rush chops, but still needs a little bit of development in that aspect. So I love Lee Hunter. I think he's going to be a really fun he's going to be a guy I feel like that just fits in any locker room. And he's going to have potentially 3 down capability because I think he can still grow and mold into a better pass rusher, even though he still has some of that now.
Yeah. All right. Next up here is 78 Gracen Halton. Do you have anything on Gracen Halton?
I do. Another guy that I actually got to watch at the Senior Bowl. And he was really, really disruptive there. He's one of these guys that may be one of the, better interior pass rushers in this class because he's an uber athletic fucking 3-tech. He is light though, and can get pushed around in the run game. His combine numbers were explosive, and seeing him in person at fucking Senior Bowl, he was making plays all over the place. I don't know that he is necessarily a guy that you have out there 3 downs either. He seems more like a guy that you could draft and bring in for like situational pass rush. He's an interior guy that you want on the field for those situations, but maybe not on first down when you're expecting a run, because that's not his game. A little bit different kind of a prospect than we've talked about so far.
Yeah, he's light in the ass.
Exactly.
For defensive tackle. And you do see it pop on film where he can kind of get blown out of spaces and stuff like that or shifted around, but it's not consistent. I watched some film specifically. I believe it was, let me double check here. Alabama. I watched him stack Kadyn Proctor, who's a dude that has something like 60 pounds on him and a lot of height. And I watched him stack him and shed him in the run game, like stand him up and then shed him, put him on his heels and shed him, which maybe that's a little bit of a problem about Kadyn Proctor. We can talk about him as we get on to the offensive lineman. But I like what I see from Gracen Halton. I think there's potential there for him to grow into the spot where, definitely I think you are getting a pass rush aspect out of him. But for a guy who can at least at times hold himself up pretty good in the run game against much bigger offensive linemen, I like to see that. I think that he has more development capability out of him. He's a guy that's definitely going to be going a little bit later than some of the names that we've recently talked about, but he's really worked himself up in this process to being more of that 3rd round, maybe even breaking into the late 2nd round type of player if you get a coach that thinks that they can develop him to be that true 3-down type of player.
Listen, I think he's going to be really, really good. And you know what? His PFF numbers would say that he was really good against the run. He's light in the ass. He got moved around a bit. He penetrates. And if he picks the right spot in the run game, he finishes. But I don't know that you know what? I didn't watch the Alabama game where he stacked and shed, but I believe you. So listen, maybe he goes higher. It's a player that I like.
That's the thing. It's not consistent that he does that because I've seen the same thing where he'll get washed out.
Yeah.
But I've also seen times when he does things that he shouldn't be doing for a guy his size against guys much bigger, which is interesting to me. It tickles my fancy a little bit to think of what could be with a guy like Gracen Halton.
Good player. Yeah. Every time, and I feel like people, every time when we make these clips, they're going to be like, oh, you guys are talking shit. We like most of these guys. These guys are going to get drafted. They're going to be capable players for the most part. But we're trying to do a job and do a good one and look at things and say these are places that you could improve. Even though I know that my fat ass cannot do what these young men can do at this point.
Yeah, for sure. All right. A guy that I talked to you about when we were both originally going to be going down to the Senior Bowl and I didn't get to make it because of fucking weather and flights. Big Citrus, Domonique Orange. I love the fucking name, but is it more than just a name, or is this a guy that's actually got some capability in the NFL? Again, we talked about him a little bit earlier in the nose tackle conversation. This is your guy who is your super traditional nose tackle. A big dude, right? 6'4", 325 here on the PFF page. He does what a nose tackle does. He clogs up space. He's inconsistent when taking on some of those double teams and can get moved around a little bit, but regardless, you kind of need a double team to take him because he is such a big dude. You're getting much in the pass rush game from him. Like, don't expect, he's got one sack that you can see on here. You're not expecting him to be out there on third downs by any means, unless it's third and short and the tush push is happening. Big Citrus is a big boy, and I like him for that. And I like where he gets drafted because that's the correct value for a nose tackle in most of these draft classes.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm going to, everything that I have here is going to be a repeat, but I'm going to say it anyways. Nose tackle with not much to offer in the pass rush, but very good in the run game. He clogs the middle and will eat up multiple blockers, does a good job of maintaining his ground, but won't generate a ton of penetration or knockback. Athletic enough and does a good job of chasing and finishing inside out. That is one thing that I do really like about his game, is that his motor is pretty goddamn good. He keeps going and he will chase down things inside out that maybe he shouldn't get to, things that get cut back inside. So I like him in that aspect, but he's not a pass rusher. He's one of those guys. He's
a north-south power guy, not great at shedding, getting east-west on some of these runs. But also, that's not the type of player that you're drafting him to be.
Look at the snap count. I mean, 412 in the A gap. He's a nose. He's a true nose. Line him up there, let him eat up some space, and let your linebackers run free, because that's what he's there for.
Yeah. All right. What are some of the other names here that you want to talk about as we go further down?
Well, let's see here. We got that one. I did that one. I got one more guy. So wherever you want to go, I'm good with.
All right.
I got one more
guy. I think I know that guy that you want to talk about. Do. I'll throw out these two right here. Rayshaun Benny. I like him as a 3-tech, a decent option in the middle rounds. Needs some more development, but has been on a Michigan defense that has been really good. Dante Corleone. He's a guy that would go a lot higher, but we're talking about a dude that A, is a little bit short, and B, has some injury stuff going on. If it wasn't for the injury concerns, he would probably be a lot higher, more like that second, maybe late second to third round type of range. But because of the injury concerns, that is dropping him quite a bit later. If the injury and the medical stuff checks out, he's going to go higher than pick 107 for that PFF rank there. I think he's probably more like a pick 60 to pick 45 if the medicals really check out well on this guy. But we'll go ahead and go to who I think you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Landon Robinson. So I don't know if Landon is watching right now. He followed us on X. He actually liked the promo of this one coming out. If you are watching, Landon, thank you for following us. Thank you for interacting. And if you ever have the opportunity and would be willing, we would love to fucking have you on the show. And I'm very excited to talk about you, because I didn't get a fucking chance to ask you a question at the combine because you got fucked and didn't get an invite. So,
no respect for our veterans. Like us, like Mike and I, what the hell?
What the fuck? All right.
I mean, you are a Navy midshipman. You haven't made it to the fleet yet, but we still respect it.
Absolutely. Listen, man, I can't imagine, like, the fucking rigor of going through the academy plus being a fucking athlete. By the way, and this man's a captain. It's in the write-up. Here we go. I'm going to make some comparisons that people will call me crazy for, and I don't care. Landon is built almost identical to Aaron Donald, and there's video to show you. Landon benches 465 pounds. Aaron famously told DK Metcalf he benches 500. They're both shorter and lighter than the typical D tackle. Landon is 5'11" with a wingspan of 6'5" and 1/4 inch. Weighs in at 297 pounds. That was at his pro day. Aaron Donald, 6 3/4 with a wingspan of 6'5" and 5/8 inch. Weighed in at 285. Landon's 10-yard split was a 1.65. Donald's was a 1.63. Oh, and by the way, they fucking know each other pretty well, actually. Evo, I don't know why it won't let me add it to the stage. I'm trying to click it. Can you add that, bitch? There we go. Here they are, hanging out. Aaron Donald showing Landon some things. By the way, just look at them. They look the same. They look the fucking same. I'm not saying that Landon will be Aaron Donald, but it's crazy, the comparisons. Landon got fucked out of being invited to the combine. He is my sleeper guy, but I don't think we should consider him a sleeper. He played at an academy, so people didn't get to see him every Saturday. He finished with 8 sacks as the defensive tackle.
8.5. Some respect on the name.
Sorry, 8.5. And also contributed on special teams and was a part of their fake. Co-captain of the Navy team and recognized by President Trump as having arms of steel. He would be a steal in the draft for whoever gets him. This kid is fucking awesome, and it's not just because he follows us. Like, if you go and watch any Navy tape, this kid is there making fucking plays. So I cannot believe that he did not get an invite, especially after what happened at Shrine, apparently. Apparently, he fucking balled at Shrine. So I cannot wait to see what he does. He should get drafted. And hell yeah to Landon. Do you have anything on Landon Robinson?
Yeah, I mean, you had it on the video there. When you look at that chest, it looks like he's built just like an Aaron Donald. Yeah. Fucking stocky. Yeah, he's not the tallest fucking dude. He's not the biggest dude when it comes to the pounds. Also, these academies, you can't get that big. That doesn't mean that he ain't going to put on more when he gets to the NFL, because he is going to get to the NFL. This guy, originally seen as like a 5th to 7th round pick, and it's probably because A, service academy, B, some of those size concerns. But then you put on the film, you watch what he does from that interior line. He is explosive. He's a gap shooter. He's getting good pressure. 8.5 sacks this last season. He's a guy who, worst case, is out there in your pressure type packages where he's going to be able to shoot those gaps. He's going to be able to slip by some of those interior linemen to get pressure on that quarterback. And then you're already getting tutelage from one of the best to ever do it from the interior there in Aaron Donald. Yeah, they are built very similar. 700-pound squat. Like you said, 465-pound bench. The dude is a fucking little muscle hamster. You're packing as much into his frame as you can there. And so you start to go and know, I don't want to talk bad on the service academies, but you get this guy with a good NFL coach who can start to really tool in what he's good at, and you could be seeing pretty big dividends paid out from him. So he's a guy that is rising right now as far as the draft goes. He's someone who originally, like I said, was seen as a 5th to 7th round pick. I think the 5th is probably getting closer to his floor because there's a lot of potential there for him. So we're probably going to be seeing him rise up a little bit further and make no doubt about it. NFL scouts aren't overlooking the service academies. They're not overlooking guys like Landon Robinson. These are guys who they already have on their mind and are probably keeping quiet about because they're like, maybe this will be my little secret because he wasn't at the combine. But they're not overlooking this guy. He's definitely going to be going probably day 3 in the draft. He's an awesome player out there for what he does. Love to see what his future potential is going to turn out to be.
And listen, I have not met Landon. I have not had an opportunity to talk to him. I didn't get to ask him a question at the combine. But I can guarantee you that this young man will be a fucking hard worker. You don't join a service academy and be a fucking schmuck. You don't make it through the service academy as a schmuck who doesn't work hard. And on top of that, you get named captain of the football team. This dude is a fucking dude. The Browns, who could use a D tackle, need to bring Landon Robinson to fucking Cleveland. Please.
All righty. Any other interior defensive linemen that you're looking to talk about here?
That was my last one, brother.
Last one. All right. With that, we will
go ahead. I wanted to fucking finish with a flurry.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and transition over to our offensive linemen, both centers, all of centers, guards, and tackles. I will say this about this class. Not the greatest tackle class. There's a lot of concerns about arm length and things like that, which has actually made this one of the better interior offensive line classes that we might have seen in a while. I like the centers a lot. I like a lot of the tackles who definitely have that guard flexibility. Again, not a ton of true tackles in this class, but definitely guys who can step up and be good tackles. It'll be interesting to get through this list. It's probably going to be a little bit lengthier because we are talking about realistically like 3 position groups that are all fitting in here on the offensive line.
Absolutely. Now, the center group in this class, I don't love. I don't have a ton of things. Okay.
There's several that I like.
Okay. I'll be interested to hear what you got. I've talked a little bit about Yeager in the mock drafts. I do have a write-up on your boy Sam Hecht because I actually got to watch him a lot in person. So I'm ready to start whenever you are, brother. We ready to start with Francis?
Yeah, let's do it. I know it's a guy that you've kept an eye on because you need offensive line help there in Cleveland. He's going to be right there available around that range where you're having your first pick as a Browns fan. So what are your thoughts here on Francis Mauigoa?
I really like Francis Mauigoa. He's got the same measurables as Penei Sewell, but it's in a very different type of frame. Mauigoa is more blocky, but he moves really well. He dominated Ohio State in the college football playoff and was consistent all year. He's a better pass protector than a run blocker, but that's because he's a really goddamn good pass blocker. He also has some position flexibility. And when I was at the media availability for him, he mentioned that he took some reps at guard because he asked his coach to give him some and that he would be willing to make that move. He was willing to do whatever the team that drafts him needs him to do. He is that more blocky type body. So I understand why that move would happen, but all the measurables were good enough to play tackle. My Browns went out and signed a right tackle. We've made a lot of offensive line moves, and I'm terrified of moving a guy from right tackle to left tackle at this point because of Jedrick fucking Wills, which will come up several times in these write-ups, by the way. But I love Mauigoa. But I think he's got to stay over on the right side or slide inside. So if your team is looking for a left tackle, I don't know that he's the right guy to take because I don't know that you want to move him. But that's just me. That's my own fucking PTSD coming out of what happens when you take a right tackle and move him to fucking left tackle.
Yeah, I really like Mauigoa. I like him as a right tackle. Do I think he could play guard? Yes. Do I think he'd be a very good guard? Yes. Could he be a better guard than tackle? Maybe. I don't know. I think that he's been a very fucking good tackle in that too often we look at right tackles as less than with left tackles. And it's because most of our quarterbacks in the league are right-handed. But that doesn't mean the right tackle isn't important. They're very important. I think that he could be a top-tier right tackle. And so because that right tackle kind of gets that devaluation, people always talk about, well, do they have flexibility to move inside a lot of times? Can they move inside a little bit? I feel like that trope kind of happens. Do I think Mauigoa could be a good guard? Yeah. But I like him as a tackle. I think he's a fantastic right tackle in this class. I got no problem with him being a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I don't either. I think he's fucking really, really good. But I would not consider taking him unless you need a right tackle. It's not somebody that you can take and move, in my opinion. Because a lot of these teams that need tackles, I don't know that they're looking for right tackles. They're looking for everybody's looking for their fucking left tackle for the next decade. That's what everybody's looking for.
I honestly don't know if he can move to left tackle or not, but you're talking about a guy who's not even 21 years old yet, and he's played exclusively at the right tackle position. If you're taking a guy as high as you are with him, you want him to jump in and start basically day one. And so that means start him at right tackle day one. If you had somehow the luxury of getting this guy and allowing him to sit, then yeah, maybe you can transition him to left tackle and train him up there over a year for him to eventually become your starting left tackle, because maybe he's got that in him, especially with the young age. But this is a guy that is going to be taken very high. I think he's going to slot in an offensive line immediately, and it's going to be at the right tackle spot, and you probably should just set it and forget it because he's going to be solid there for you.
I absolutely agree. And producer Amber actually coming in here with a question that I feel like there may be some other people that are wondering the same thing. What is the difference between the right tackle and left tackles that they can't play both spots? Essentially, everything that you are taught, that you have been trained your entire life, is done one way. So if you are a right tackle, your right foot is back, and it is the first foot that always moves. You are more comfortable in that position. If you move to the left tackle side, your left foot is going to be back, and every movement is now backwards. It's like having somebody, it's not as dramatic as having somebody who is right-handed try to throw left-handed. But once you have trained a skill to this level that these guys have done it, to completely change all of the steps it's a learning process again. So while they're really good fucking athletes and they can figure it out possibly at some point, you don't know that they will be as good at that new skill as the one that got them to the NFL level. That's my take on it. Evo, what do you got?
Yeah, same thing. And then when it comes to the left tackle versus the right tackle in particular, a lot of times the left tackles are seen as more skilled when it comes to pass protection because, again, most quarterbacks are right-handed. That ends up being the blind side for the quarterback. Right-handed quarterback drops back and that right shoulder goes back. And so their back is facing towards that left side of the line. A lot of teams like to put their more premier pass rushers. If they're not putting up against the weaker of the tackles, they will put him on that blind side because that left tackle gets kind of put out there on an island a little bit more so in order to block the more premier pass rusher, because that premier pass rusher now gets to come from behind to try to sack that quarterback and makes it a lot more dangerous because they're just banking on that left tackle protecting them. Whereas the right tackle in front of them, they're not skilled, but the quarterback's able to see that rush coming towards them a lot easier and avoid it. So there's a little bit of a lesser need compared to the left side on that right tackle spot. And that's really just like very generalized. There's obviously a lot more to it. Amber also asked, are there many that can play both sides? Typically, no. You have some guys on teams that are swing tackles.
Swing tackles.
Train at both. But the thing is that they're backups typically. Guys who are spot starters for left side or right side because you're primary starters who do nothing but train for that position are really good at what they do. And the swing tackles are usually average at both sides. And swing tackles are really important for a lot of teams because they kind of take up two backup roles rather than having to have a dedicated backup left tackle or dedicated backup right tackle.
Boom. Dropping knowledge and talking prospects. You ready for the next one, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. We got Spencer Fano here after a really, really good 2024. Drops off a little bit in 25. Still pretty damn good. Another guy who's playing right tackle who I think has the kind of the athletic ability to play a little bit more left tackle. Good in the run, okay in the pass. I'd say okay, but still pretty damn good. A guy that very early, we're talking November last year, was looked at as possibly a top 10 prospect. Him and Mauigoa were kind of vying for 1A, 1B as far as who the best tackle in this class was. Spencer Fano, excuse me, a little bit more of an athletic guy than Mauigoa, in my opinion. And I feel like he has the capability of possibly moving a little bit more over to that left side, left tackle if need be. Also a guy that probably is not going to be taken as high as a Mauigoa. So maybe he is one of those guys that if you're looking to convert, you can deal with him on the left side and maybe a little bit of a downgrade for a little bit while he learns that position.
Yeah. So he's a really good athlete and has experience playing both tackle spots. That makes it more comfortable for me because he's already kind of proven that he can do it both. He is thinner than than most of your modern tackles, though. But he does a really good job of winning with his feet and athleticism. He needs to improve in the run game, but I think that's a frame that he could add to. Good balance, and at times catches blocks. There's a lot to like with Fano. If you wanted to move a tackle, this would be the guy that you could decide, okay, you could do it. We just went through that whole that conversation. Most guys, if you're a left tackle and you're not athletic enough to stick there, they'll move you to right tackle. That is a more common move. Going from right to left is very rare. Jedrick Wills tried it. It didn't work. Mauigoa should not attempt this. No team should attempt that with Mauigoa. But if there is a guy that is currently playing right tackle that could move to left tackle, it's Fano because he's already played there. Now, I wonder why you would want to do that, because the left tackle that started for Utah, the same fucking team that he played for, is in this draft as well. So why not just play Fano at the position he's been playing for a while? I think he's capable of moving, but I would just keep him where he is. I'd keep him as a right tackle.
All right. Next up, a guy who has been rising pretty damn quickly across
this
boards.
Fucking name. I'm
Monroe
tired
Freeling.
of this name, dude. And listen, it's not that I don't like him. So this is the biggest mover of the draft, and his RAS scores show that he's really athletic. And that's exactly why the fuck all of this is happening. Because his numbers are off the goddamn charts. He's basically perfect. If you built the fucking tackle in a lab, you'd make him this way. He's 6'7", 315 pounds. He's got 34 3/4-inch arms. Thank you for the 6'7", Evo. And people are falling in love with the potential. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's really all it is right now is potential. He hasn't played a lot of football. His technique is raw as hell, and he has won because of his athleticism. If he gets some good coaching and some patience, this kid can be incredible. But I feel like he's going to go to a situation where he's forced to play early, and he's going to be left on an island. We'll see how he deals with it.
Yeah. Not a great run blocker so far in his time in college. Like you said, not a ton of playing time, only the past 2 years. And even 2024, you can see that much lower snap count than what he had in 25. What's really boosting him is, like you said, the RAS score and stuff like that. He's got the ideal frame for it. Still could pack on a little bit more weight. But the big reason why I feel like he's kind of climbing is because he's the true left tackle out of this class. That's at the top end. And we talked about some of the reasons why left tackles are very important to NFL teams, more highly paid sometimes than their right tackle counterparts. So if you're looking for that guy to come in and play left tackle and not have to worry about a positional convert, Monroe Freeling is that guy. It is a lot of projection, and he has gotten better every single year. And so the trend is upwards on him for sure. But like you said, this is a guy that probably needs a little bit of patience and some good coaching, because he's not going to be a guy that you drop in day one and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, this guy this guy's worth a top 15 pick at left tackle. Realistically, in other drafts, this is a guy that's bottom end of the first round, early second round, because he needs a little development to him. But after 2 years of development, he could be a top 20 to 15 left tackle in the NFL.
Well, when you look at the fucking frame and all the measurables and all the projections that he could be, I understand why people fall in love with it, right? You're drafting traits, and he's got traits out the ass. But I mean, is he really ready to step in and play left tackle right away in the NFL? I have some doubts.
There's a guy that we're going to talk about in a little bit that I feel like is kind of identical in a lot of aspects as far as the projection, who's a right tackle, who I comp to a guy on my team, Brian O'Neill, that was a second round pick, which is the correct spot for a guy like this who could add a little bit of weight, needs better coaching technique and stuff, but could end up being a top 15 guy in the league once you get that development and if the projection starts to hit. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Right now, though, we have to talk about one of the best offensive linemen in the class, if not the best, and extremely good guard here in Vega Ioane. I'll let you go ahead and run away with this.
All right, so he's a mauler when he gets his hands on you, drives the defender in the run game, and maintains good balance throughout. I think this kid is the best lineman in this draft, regardless of position. Pass sets very well and has no problem with the anchor. He's just not super athletic, so he's a guard. But he can be an all-pro guard at the NFL level. He's fucking awesome. And I'm talking about a guy that I had to watch against Ohio State. He is just really goddamn good at what he does. You look the last 2 years, hasn't given up a sack. This last year, only gave up 4 hurries. Like, the improvements have been there every single year. And I still think that he's going to grow. Even, the sky is the limit for this kid in my mind. Like, I get, one guy every year that I really fall in love with from the offensive line group, and it's this guy. I think he's the best of the group, the entire group, and should be a high pick. I took him at 10 for the Bengals the other day. So,
yeah, not much else for me to say. I think he's easily the best guard in the class. I think Pregnon, who we're going to talk here in a little bit, is also extremely good. Not super far down away from Ioane, but Ioane is just kind of still in that class of his own. He's a set it, forget it, start right away type of guard in this league. All right. Next up, Blake Miller. This was the tackle I was talking about. Blake Miller, to me, right tackle in this league. I really like it. He is consistently, if you look at this weight here, 6'6", 315. This is the highest weight that he's been in college because the guy was built a little bit more like a tight end to begin. And he's put on more weight, gotten better technique every year going through college. Again, reminds me of Brian O'Neill, my right tackle for the Vikings. That was a huge knock on him in the draft process. Way too light to play right tackle. He's going to need 2-3 years of putting on mass. Well, the Vikings were able to get him a good 30 to 40 pounds in one off season before the start of the season after drafting him. And he started at right tackle really early on his rookie year and has been stellar ever since. Blake Miller is that type of guy where there is projection for him for sure. I still think he needs a little bit more weight, but he's a guy who can get late first round. Again, these guys are kind of heightened a little bit because of the draft class overall, but he's a guy that probably fits in better early second round. You don't have to start him right away. You get him in a strength and conditioning coach in an NFL weight room and a nutritionist who's going to help him put on good weight. And I think the technique that he has, the athleticism that he has, and his steady progression through college is going to make him a pretty awesome right tackle who, again, I comp almost directly to a Brian O'Neill.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. At 6'7", he's lean. So the getting bigger, adding more, I think it needs to happen. But he's very athletic, and when you talk about like one of the measurable guys, is another guy with fucking massively long arms as well, 34-inch. So, as a set it, this is a guy I think you could probably set and forget it at right tackle, but I worry about how he holds up in the run game a little bit, just because he's so light at this point. He's lean, he's thin. Like, give him the nutritionist, give him all of those things, and I agree with you. I think he can be a very, very good player, but you have a little bit of concern early on until you grow him into the man he's gonna be.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. Like, Brian O'Neill was a good pass blocker in college, so in the run game. Once they got that weight on him, like, he's been excellent in the run game, almost better in the run game than as a pass blocker. A little bit of a nasty streak to him. I like Blake Miller, and I think he's probably going closer to the right spot, which again I think is in the second round. Sometimes you'll see him sneak up there into the first to a team like a Patriots who still needs tackle help.
Strongsville, Ohio native.
All right, Kadyn Proctor. Any thoughts on this behemoth?
Yeah. He's an enormous human being and a good athlete for his size. Also, he's still very young. There are some concerns, though. He is so big that you worry about his ability to move as a left tackle in the NFL. He's a good player, but I'm not sure he isn't better sliding inside or to the right tackle spot. But Jed Wills has given me nightmares about changing tackle sides, specifically Alabama ones. So that's how I feel about Kayden.
Yeah, big fucking dude. Also, again, not even 21 yet. He has a lot of football and a lot of growth in front of him. I don't know what it is about Alabama and them liking their offensive linemen to just be big as fuck. But he's another one of those guys where this is a left tackle at that size. You're like, this is a little bit big for a fucking left tackle. He is athletic, but I feel like you cut 20 pounds off of this guy, and all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense as a left tackle. Because of that size, that's why I feel like people are like, he could probably be successful as a guard or something like that. But I think that if you are able to mold the body a little bit more correctly, get him off that Alabama diet and into more of an NFL left tackle diet, you can see good things. He still needs technique work for sure.
He's young, man. He's so young.
And that's it. This is another guy that I think the sky could be the limit. But right now, needs to cut some of that weight, needs to work on the technique. I wouldn't feel great about starting him, set it, forget it, as a left tackle right away. I mean, at that size, I'd feel better with him at right tackle. But again, he hasn't really played right tackle. So you're talking about a positional convert at that point. Not a project, but a guy who needs some patience. And I do think that the floor on him actually is a decent way low. If he doesn't start to hit on that projection, he could just end up being kind of that thunderous left tackle that these quick edge rushers are going to be able to find a way around with relative ease.
Yeah. There's a lot to like, but there's also a lot of concerns.
All right. Maxx Ihenacho, a guy that we heard a little bit about there at the Senior Bowl. Interesting prospect. Very raw. Very good athlete. What is your thoughts on this dude?
So he's really damn good at Senior Bowl. He had good measurables at the combine, 6'6", 321, looked good drills, workouts, played against really tough competition this year, and he did very well. I actually don't have a lot of bad to say about his game. But do we have any idea how old this fucking guy is yet?
I don't know. I could do a quick Google search.
I mean, you can. Sure. I Googled it earlier. I still can't find a definitive answer. I've seen 22. I've seen 25. His family immigrated here, and I don't think anybody knows his actual age. So if he's 25, you're like, that's tough. That's a man. Like, he's probably not going to progress a lot. If he's 22. okay, we still got some room for growth, and this kid's going to be fucking incredible because his game is really good. Everything that I saw from him looked really good. But that is a serious question. Like,
ChatGPT says he's 22 years old.
Okay.
How much you want to trust that? I think he's raw still. I think he's raw. Could still stand to build into the frame a little bit. Despite, I mean, look, 330 ain't bad for a guy who's 6'6", but he still looks kind of lean to me for that, for what it's worth. I do think that this is a guy that's a second-round pick, high ceiling potential, needs some more development.
Yeah, listen, I think he's a good player. I enjoyed watching him at Senior Bowl. Was very, very good there. That's a question I want to know. I got to know how old he is.
All right, Emmanuel Pregnon here, a guy who I kind of gassed up a little bit as being a really good guard. Not too far off of Vega, but still a little step below. A guy who I think can eke into the first round, especially if you are feeling how I feel about guards, where you're seeing these guys get fucking paid, that they're worth it. He's a guy that I also think could probably step in and start kind of day one at one of those guard spots.
I agree, man. He's a really good football player. He's played in multiple systems in college and had no problem with the transitions. He was great this season, and he's another mauler that uses his hands really well. He's good in pass protection and should help the team that drafts him right away. He's a redshirt senior, though, so he's a little bit older than most of the prospects. That's one of the only knocks you really got on this guy, is that he's a little older. Same things, same questions you would have like with a Maxx is how old is this guy? But Pregnon is a guy that you draft, he starts right away. I'm very comfortable with doing that. At probably left guard more than right guard, but he could probably go any fucking either spot, honestly. I think he's going to be one of your best 5.
All righty. You want to talk about Caleb Lomu or move on to any of these other guys?
I do have a Caleb Lomu right up. So he's a really good athlete, as I found out at the combine. Tested well, but he actually told us a story about his during his media avail about playing flag football, and apparently he was an absolute dog. He's got good balance, good hands. Still needs to develop in the run game, but he's only 21 and only has 2 years of starting experience. It's more than Freeling has in terms of experience, in my opinion, but I still think there's some time to develop. So Caleb Lomu's another guy that I like. They were right around that same range before the combine, before all the measurements happened. And then Freeling shot way the fuck up. And Lomu, because he didn't have, I guess, the same crazy measurables, was just stuck right here. I don't know that there's a huge difference between the two players if you started them day one.
That's
you're hoping on projections with the one.
The big knock on Lomu was that he did have a very down year, specifically in that run game. Didn't look great against the run. Another one of these tackles at left tackle, who was, again, we're talking October, November timeframe. He was talked about as a first round tackle, but then his year just kind of kept on not going great, specifically in that run game. Good pass blocker, but he needs to, whatever happened this year in the run game, needs to get figured out. So he needs a little bit more development in that respect. Unless you are purely looking at this guy to go out there and be a good pass protector and help him get doubles with tight ends or something like that in the run game. That's the biggest knock on him right now for me is the run scores, as you can see here, were pretty abysmal this year.
Well, they are where they are. I hope that he figures it out. He was a nice kid to talk to.
All right, Chase Basantis. Anything on him?
Basantis, I got really good run blocker. Moves very well for a guard. Shorter arms hurt him in pass protection, but he does a good job with hand fighting, and his feet move really well to help keep him in front. He would seem to be a better fit in a zone blocking scheme because of the athleticism, and the angles will help with the arm length. So that's what I got on Basantis.
Yeah, this guy definitely more of a pass blocker than a run blocker. I saw Dalton Reisner in him, oddly enough, a little bit. I think he's solid. He's a guy that's going to be going kind of in those middle rounds. A solid guard, but not at the level of the other two guys that we talked about. Some of these guys that we're going to be getting into here shortly do, I think, project better to jump into that interior offensive line type of role who are currently tackles. And that's where it starts to mix in with the Basantes types, where Basantes has primarily played at left guard through his time in college. Obviously, you can see a little bit of right tackle time here, but he's a solid guard, a guy who I wouldn't be looking to start day one, but solid nonetheless.
Yeah, I think he's a good player. And all these guys that are shorter arms, you always have questions about. I think he will be fine. But anytime you get a guy that's also a little lighter, you worry about scheme fit. There are certain teams now that are going to a much more power run game. A guy that we just saw up there, Gennings Dunker, is like the antithesis almost, I feel like, of a Chase Basantes. Like, Gennings is fucking incredible in the run game. That's all he wants to do is maul people. I don't know. I haven't read it yet.
Therapy's back. Well, I've been two divorced dads that bet it all on the Florida Gators, and now I've lost everything. They're fucked up bracket. I don't remember what I did on my bracket because I don't really follow college basketball enough.
Yeah, I filled out the bracket challenge thing on ESPN. Typically, when it gets closer to the end of the tournament, I will go back and look to see how I did, but I don't actively track it. I'm no longer in college. Well, actually, I am in college. I'm no longer a college-aged student, so I don't gamble on the March Madness brackets anymore. I used to do it every year, but after a while, March Madness is so difficult to keep fucking track of, dude.
Yeah.
There are a billion goddamn college basketball teams.
It doesn't help when I see these college names I've never fucking, I don't know, Sleepy Eye, Slocum Joe's fucking weird fucking names. And I'm like,
Tony Brook, baby.
Yeah. Where the fuck is this place?
There's some
good on.
Yeah, for sure. What Niagara College won a game a couple years ago, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh man.
But all right. We're on Gennings Dunker, a guy that I know that we both love. If not for just the hair and mustache, like, he looks like exactly what you want in a fucking offensive lineman. And then he's an Iowa Hawkeye who they like to churn out offensive linemen. A guy who's played a lot of right tackle, but a guy who gets talked about as possibly being a guard in the NFL because he's got those shorter arms. Played a lot of right tackle, was pretty damn good at it, both in the run and pass game. But we are talking about shorter arms that usually projects a little bit more towards a guy who should be playing inside at guard. He even did some practice snaps, I believe, there at the combine at center to try to show some flexibility to it. He's a guy that I would enjoy to draft. I am not scared to project him as a right tackle, but sure, get him some time at guard, allow him to kind of fill out that NFL role. And if you have to play him at tackle, I'm not going to feel bad about it. I mean, we're talking about a dude on the Patriots last year who goes super high with short arms at left tackle. I feel better about a right tackle with shorter arms than a left tackle with shorter arms. And I think you're going to be able to get a dude that's a fucking dog in Gennings Dunker, who's going to be a hard lunch pail worker and just be a good offensive lineman for you. He's not going to be top tier necessarily, but I think he's going to be a pretty solid NFL starter for close to a decade.
So listen, I think he's going to be really good as well. Played all over the place at the Senior Bowl and was pretty good there. Started at tackle for Iowa, but projects as a guard in the NFL. He isn't very athletic, but damn, is he a specimen. The red mullet screams, draft me, and I would like to drink a beer after I kick this D-tackle's ass. He's a good run blocker, but needs to improve as a pass blocker. The move inside should help cover some of that up early on, though. I think that he can play right tackle, but I do think that sliding him inside would be better for him. He looked better on the inside at the Senior Bowl, in my opinion, but he's just he's a mean old prick when he's in the run game, and I love it. Like, I love me some Gennings Dunker, dude.
Yeah, this is a guy, you look at mock drafts and stuff like that, and he's pretty commonly falling to the end of the second round, into the third round, sometimes even in the fourth. I like him as a second round guy still, just because of that fucking mullet. Like, give me the mullet, man. You can sell me on a mullet. Don't scout the helmet, but you can scout the mullet. I fucking love it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm Derpy. Are you a Browns fan? I believe that you might be, because there's been a lot of
look
talk.
At Steelers up above. It looks like he's a Steelers fan.
Okay, well, listen, I don't know. Apparently, this was one of the things that we could have talked about. We kind of skipped over it at the beginning of the show. That apparently, Ty Simpson might be the best quarterback in the draft, according to Dan Orlovsky, who I love and respect as an analyst. But I completely fucking disagree with his take on Ty Simpson.
Ty Simpson has some NFL traits. He's got a decent NFL body size for the position. He's a guy that needs to sit for a year or two before you start to see any dividends. And even then, again, we're talking about projection. I don't dislike Ty Simpson, and I understand why Ty Simpson very well could go at the end of the first round to a team that is willing to let him sit. If the Rams are somehow able to find their way to getting him, makes a lot of sense. The Steelers, if you bring back Aaron Rodgers, you can let Ty Simpson sit. And that's why he gets talked about a lot. The thing is that if you're listening to all these people saying, the Steelers love this dude or the Steelers love that dude, that's happening for every single team. No NFL franchise with less than a month to the draft is giving out any real information. This is all conjecture. This is all just people talking because they have to fill the space and try to be like, I figured out what they could be doing. I'm going to put this out there. Like, none of this is truly backed information. There's sometimes that places it's just a perfect fit. Like, this team needs this piece and this guy is right in that range, so it's a perfect fit. The Steelers are a tough one because they've got a decent amount of things that they need. Biggest one being a quarterback going forward, but there isn't a good quarterback that you're going to be finding in your draft position. So you have to start to possibly reach a little bit there.
Yeah, I got it. All right, are we ready to move on from Gennings Dunker?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want to talk about next, Mike?
Well, the next guy I got is a center. It is Sam Hecht. So if you want to talk about one of these guys here in the middle, we could do that. But I know you got a bunch of centers you want to talk about at some point. I think Connor Lew is probably one of them.
Yeah, and Keelan Rutledge, because Keelan Rutledge listed as a guard here. I think he's going to be a center in the NFL. I think he's going to be pretty damn solid. The fact that he has some versatility to play guard is only going to help him. Those interior offensive lineman teams love the fact that they have a guy who can play multiple positions in there. I think this is a guy that you're going to get mid-rounds, and this is pretty common with a lot of interior offensive linemen. You'll find a mid-round, and in a year or two, you're like, where the fuck did this guy come from? He's pretty fucking good at being an interior offensive lineman. That's Keelan Rutledge to me. I think his best spot is a center going forward. Not going to put a whole lot else out there about him. Connor Lew probably would be the top center in this class, a dude that is dealing with injuries. You can see he only played 7 games. I believe it was an ACL tear that he's going to be coming off of. Now, ACLs are dime a dozen in the NFL these days, and they get repaired, and the guy's good again. No problem, thanks to Adrian Peterson. But this is a dude that, again, if he was not injured, probably is the top center in this class as a pure center. You can see he just played center in college, was very good at it there at Auburn, and he's going to drop because of that injury concern. All right. Now, Sam Hecht. Go ahead and give me your thoughts on this guy.
He's light in the ass, but he's a good athlete. Moves really well and seals off defenders in the run game rather than drives them out. Good hands and balance. Won't fit with every team because of his lack of size and ability to drive people in a power run game, but would be a great fit for his own scheme team. Good pass protector too, but catches at times it doesn't have the size to re-anchor every time. Looked pretty good at Senior Bowl, but was susceptible to the bull rush. And Lee Hunter was one of the guys that was there bull rushing his ass.
Yeah. This guy, because Connor Lew doesn't, has the injury concerns, I think he's the top center in this class, pure center. Unless you don't want to discount that injury concern. Probably the best technique as far as a center in this class. And at his size, you need that. He's 6'4", around 300 pounds. He's a little bit lighter. I see a lot of Tyler Linderbaum in this guy. Tyler Linderbaum, who just got a fucking stupid contract from the Raiders. Tyler Linderbaum isn't a perfect center. He's a very good center. I feel like they mold and project very similar to one another. And I do feel good about Sam being able to be dropped into a lineup and starting pretty damn quick. So I'm a fan of him. Again, technique type of guy, but you have to have good technique and anchor as a guy at that weight.
All right. I think that was actually my last guy that I have here. It is. So if you got anybody else you want to go over, let's hit him.
Look, Jake Slaughter, he also is a pretty damn good center for zone schemes. The dude looks like he's 32 years old, but he's only 23. He's been on pretty damn good Gators teams. He's done a good job. He's solid. Another guy that I think can, like, you're a very capped ceiling with this guy, but he will be an average to above average NFL starting center, I think, within a year or two, and could be a starter pretty quick. Just don't expect him to reach that somewhat lower ceiling, except for in a year or two or whatever with this guy. Then a Logan Jones, a guy who I profile to Garrett Bradbury. Again, lightweight guy, also a pretty decent technician. He can get bull rushed even more than Sam did earlier. But Iowa does churn out good offensive linemen. I like that pedigree. Don't scout the helmet, but still, Iowa does a good job with those interior offensive linemen. Tyler Linderbaum light, or in my opinion, a little more of a Garrett Bradbury, who was the starting center on the Super Bowl runner-up team and did just get traded to the Bears. And I'm perfectly fine with that because I do know that those guys can get bowled over a little bit. So Logan Jones, a guy who you can definitely get in rounds like 5, who I think could be a starter pretty early on in his career, is going to have some of those issues, but there are things that you can definitely work around. And obviously you get guys like Garrett Bradbury, who ends up being just an average NFL starting center and can kind of get bull rushed, but still average is better than ass. And there are some teams with some ass center play that could absolutely use a guy like a Logan Jones.
All right. Listen, there's a whole bunch of fucking Iowa linemen in this bunch. Bo Stevens is down here somewhere.
Yeah.
Playing guard.
Do you have any other offensive lineman that you want to go over?
I mean, I liked Bo Stevens a little bit at the Senior Bowl. I mean, since he's sitting right there. He had some bad moments at the Senior Bowl, but he also is the guy that showed some position flexibility as well. Kind of was all over the place. So you do like that. When you're looking at these later round linemen, like your fucking 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round guys, anybody that you could bring in that gives you flexibility has a lot more value. So these guys that are taking snaps at different positions throughout the bowl process and all of that, it helps their draft stock immensely. I think Bo did that because I don't know how high he goes if you only know that he can play one fucking spot.
All right. I got 2 other guys I want to say a little bit about. One is Cage Casey here. Awesome name. All right. He's a guy that I also kind of mocked to being similar to a Brian O'Neill. However, I think that he took some snaps through this pre-draft process at center, understanding that he could possibly need to move inside a little bit because he doesn't have all the same measurables. He's a guy that needs to build up his frame a little bit more, but a guy who, again, where you're getting in the 5th, 6th round, that is going to possibly have some swing versatility to him. He's a guy that I like to take a shot on there. A bit of a fan of. And then Brian Parker the second. Did you do any work on Brian Parker?
I did not.
All right. So this is a guy who played tackle here at Duke. A lot of right tackle, as you can see. Pretty damn good grades both in the run and pass game, right? Short arms. Can you think of another Duke tackle in recent memory that ended up projecting to the NFL as a center and has turned into a pretty damn good center?
No, you're going to have to help me.
Graham Barton out of
Thank
Duke.
you. 10 o'clock.
For the Buccaneers. I think this guy is Graham Barton. Like, I think that is actually his ceiling, is to be Graham Barton. Now, Graham Barton got a whole bunch of shine as we got closer to the draft. I don't think that you're seeing that here from Brian Parker II, but I think that he has that sort of potential in him coming out of Duke. So he's another guy who's a little bit more of a sleeper for me. Probably not going to be a tackle. I don't necessarily like him as a guard either. If you have to play him at tackle as like a backup or something like that, I'm okay with it. But I do think this guy is going to fit in and mold well as a center in the NFL.
All right. Tackle the center. Not a common move, but a couple guys there at the end.
But it's happened for that Duke team before, so it's a thing that I kind of can't help but watch out for.
All right. I feel it. I feel it for sure. Oh man, it is getting late here out on the East Coast. Everybody who was tuned in and stuck with us, thank you very much. Time is the most valuable thing that you have. So anytime that you give some of it to us, we are forever grateful. Evo, before we finally sign off and get the fuck out of here, do you got anything else you want to say to the people? I know you're going to get your one last word, but did we miss anything before I officially say let's get the fuck out of here?
I'll save it for that last word, or my last word will be this. Minnesota community, NHL community lost an important person to us. Jessie Pierce, reporter for the NHL Minnesota Wild. She did a lot of sports shows with Score North, which is a podcast group, former radio group that I watch a lot of their stuff. I've watched Jessie on Vikings shows before, Wild shows. She's just a big sports person. Tragically lost her life along with her 3 children several days ago. Their home in White Bear Lake caught fire. Her and her 3 children and their pet dog all perished in the fire. Really shitty news because she was extremely beloved in our local community there. And I didn't even understand the outreach that she had on the NHL community. You're seeing other NHL franchises leave spots for her in their stadium, in their press booths, donating to the GoFundMes and stuff for her husband. I can't imagine what he has to be going through to lose everything: your home, your pet, your kids, your wife. Super sad, super tragic. I definitely was not as close to her as far as fandom as a lot of other people in the Minnesota community. But a seriously terrible loss. I don't have the GoFundMes or anything like that up, but they're super easy to find if you feel like in your heart donating to try to help her, her family and her husband going forward. But in times like this where there's so much bad shit going on in the world and stuff like that, to see how much people have reached out and tried to be supportive of the community and her family, it is kind of a bright spot to see that there is still some good out there in this world in dark times. So extremely sad to see her passing, and our wishes obviously go out to her family, and that Minnesota Wild and NHL community.
Terrible tragedy. Hug your loved ones. You never know what's going to happen. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Evo, I appreciate you. To everybody who tuned in, thank you very much. Like I said earlier, time is the most valuable thing that you have. So anytime that you give some to us, we are forever grateful. With that, I'm Mike. That's Evo. This was Raw Dog Sports. See you.